All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I'm George Hartwell, Mayor of Grand Rapids, and we're very pleased to see such a great turnout this morning, and we're proud and pleased to welcome the Governor of Michigan to Grand Rapids. I know that I don't have to tell you that these are difficult and challenging times in our state. Grand Rapids is not immune from the economic woes of the state. While by many measures we're better off, we certainly are experiencing high unemployment rates here in our community, and we've had to begin to reinvent ourselves as an economic power, which is what we have been. In fact, Michigan is in the process of reinventing itself as an economic engine. Manufacturing that grew this state, that made us strong, that put us in the spotlight before the entire world. Manufacturing has certainly taken a hard hit in our state. And so in economic times such as this, I am especially assured by the leadership that we've seen from Governor Jennifer Granholm. She is beginning to lead us through what has been a sort of a deep, dark forest of economic woe. In fact, we were commenting earlier this morning that she's been in office 1 year longer than have I, and neither of us have had a year yet where there hasn't been deficit to solve for. It's getting old, isn't it? Getting old, Governor. And because it's getting old, we're doing something about it. As a matter of fact, the American Recovery Act funds that are coming here to Michigan is the subject that calls us together here today. The way that we are using them at the state level and at the local level to reinvent ourselves to make us strong again. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and honor to bring forward and introduce to you the governor who needs no introduction, our governor of the great state of Michigan, Jennifer M. Granholm. Please. Governor, thank you.
So much, Mayor. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Got a lot of information to communicate to you in a very short amount of time. So I'm going to try to be crisp, and I'm going to use the help of a PowerPoint, which is right behind me. First thing I want to point out, I got this natural light. I wonder if there's a way to dim at least the periphery. Can you see it in the back? You sure you can see all of it? You can see this great logo right here? I say great because it's not ours. It's actually the Recovery Act logo. So if you see infrastructure projects that have that logo on it, you know that it's paid for by the Federal Recovery Act. So let me just get started. This act, and the reason why I'm here is because I want you to know what's in it for you. What does it mean for citizens in Michigan? And if you run organizations, what's in it for the people who you are representing? So the Recovery Act was signed into law on February 17th. It is the largest investment in bridges, roads, infrastructure in 50 years, and it's the largest series of tax cuts for moderate and lower income people in this country's history. So there's a huge amount of benefit in terms of stimulating the economy, particularly for moderate and lower income folks. Okay, let me just tell you quickly. Michigan, obviously, as the mayor has said, we're in the middle, we are sort of ground zero. We are ground zero, not sort of ground zero. We're ground zero of the shift in manufacturing jobs, the fight for automotive jobs and suppliers. It is all happening right here. We have 7 times more automotive employment in Michigan than all of the other states. So if you wonder why our unemployment rate is higher, all you have to look at is what's happening with General Motors and Chrysler and the suppliers to them to know that's what's causing Michigan's challenge. We've had such a concentration, and proudly so, in the automotive sector that we haven't in the past diversified our economy. This is diversifying our economy. One way or the other, we're going to come out a more diverse economy, by hook or by crook. In fact, the largest sector in Michigan's economy today is not manufacturing like it was. The largest sector in Michigan's economy is, do you know? Healthcare. And so you guys are in the sweet spot of that, right? Here in Grand Rapids, you are in the sweet spot. So the bottom line is this Recovery Act is focused largely on three things, and the three things that it's focused on are the same three things that we are focused on in Michigan, so we can use these dollars to accelerate our strategies. The first thing it's focused on is especially diversifying the nation's economy, but adding the sector of renewable and alternative energy. Sweet for us, because that's exactly what we have been focused on. The second thing they're doing is making sure that there is support for education. Our strategy in Michigan has been to double the number of college graduates, whether it's getting a technical or a vocational certification or a four-year university degree or a community college degree. The states that are going to do the best are the states that have the most well-educated workforce. 2 weeks ago, the president has said that the United States is going to leap above other countries in terms of our number of adults in our population with college degrees. So this act is a down payment on that strategy, and I'll talk about that in a second. The third thing this act does that corresponds exactly to our strategy is making sure that people are protected during this recession. During this tough time, make sure you're not pulling the rug out from those who, through no fault of their own, have lost their jobs, are facing foreclosure, etc. And this act provides a significant amount of help for individuals to get through this recession. And that's where I'm going to focus probably the bulk of my conversation with you today. The money that's coming to Michigan is coming in three different ways. One of the ways is through what is known as formula dollars. There are 100 different federal programs that were funded through the Recovery Act, 100, or maybe even more. And those those monies are coming, for example, to schools through something called Title I. It's coming to Medicaid to make sure we're not cutting people off of health care. It's coming through unemployment. So there's 100 different programs that the Recovery Act funded. The money's coming to us that way. The money is coming to us through competitive grants. Right before this meeting, I met with a number of the leaders of Grand Rapids and said to them, the federal government is asking you to compete for grant money over and above what was already awarded in the act. So go after it, because I think they're going to look tenderly upon Michigan because of what we're going through, and the state can't apply for much of that directly. So we're asking organizations, if you're in the faith community, if you are in the university community, if you're a municipality, if you're a foundation, there is probably a grant for you. And we want you to go after it to bring those dollars home. So, and the third way that the money is coming to Michigan is through tax cuts. And I'll talk about that. Michigan is getting about $18 billion. Now think about that. That is just a huge amount of money. It really is. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. So of that $18 billion pie, $11 billion is coming through tax cuts. So that's $11 billion over the next 27 months that will be injected into the economy. So $11 billion in tax cuts, $7 billion in those formula dollars, all of those programs I was talking about, which is very significant as well. And the Obama administration anticipates that as a result of that infusion, that we will save or create about 109,000 jobs in Michigan, which is terrific. But let me put that in perspective. Since the year 2000, when the contraction of the manufacturing sector, the movement of the manufacturing sector to low-wage countries began, and the challenges to our automotive industry began, 2000 is when all of those manufacturing jobs started to slide, and the market share of our big three automakers started to contract significantly. From 2000 till the end of this year, it's anticipated that Michigan will lose 700,000 jobs. So 109,000 is really important, and it's great, but it's not going to be the whole ball of wax. It's not going to be the answer to all of our problems, which is why we have to continue the strategy of diversifying this economy, adding new sectors to this economy, and educating our citizens to make sure that they can take on the jobs that we are trying to attract here. Okay? All right. Let me talk about the tax cuts for 1 second. So, if you can see that? Really? You sure? All right, it looks better back here than it does up there. I'm glad to hear that. But I'm going to come back so I can make sure I see it. So the top one there says $400 tax cut for workers earning less than $75,000. So that started on April 1st. So if you're earning less than $75,000, you already started to see that in your paycheck. You remember that the president said that he was going to give a tax cut to 95% of Americans. That's reflected right there on that top bullet. The second is an earned income tax credit increase. So let me just stop here for 1 second, because the earned income tax credit is such a stimulus for Michigan, and yet 20% of our citizens, those who are eligible, don't even apply. Look at the amount of money you could get. This is an example. Now, this is the increased amount. If you have a family of three or more children, and you're making up to $43,000 a year, so it rewards work, then you can get back from the federal government $5,657 in a check. Can you imagine getting a check for $5,600 in the mail? What could you do with that? Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing. So, but the kicker is, and that number was increased by about $600 per family. So you can get it today, even though April 15th has passed. If you know people who are eligible, right? You guys do this, right? Tell me. Here, stand up for a second, because people want to know, where do they get help? So if you know folks who would be eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit and who can apply today even still, we want them to bring that money home. So why don't you say a word about it and tell me who you are again.
I'm Brenda Brame. I'm the program manager for the Kent County Tax Credit Coalition, and we will prepare those taxes, and we will do it free, and we will ensure that they get the Earned Income Tax Credit. All they need to do is call 211 at the United Way Center. And they need to also know that they can get a portion of that now in their paycheck by just filling out a W-5 at their payroll department and getting the advanced earned income tax credit, which is an extra $120 in their paycheck a month.
That's a beautiful thing, don't you think? Now, in addition to the federal earned income tax credit, the state has an earned income tax credit too, which is 10% of what the federal is. So it's another, in this example, another $560. So we want to get people to apply. We also want to get people to take advantage of the services that great communities across the state are offering. Come here, young man. This is a great Michigan State grad who... We love Grand Valley, too. But say a word about how easy it was to access the help.
Well, I had my taxes done.
What's your name?
I'm sorry, I'm Eric Keener. Like she said, I graduated from Michigan State about a year ago. I went to United Church Outreach Ministry, which is one of the tax preparation sites for the Kent County Tax Credit Coalition, and I had my taxes done. I was in and out of there really quick. I got my return. They e-filed it for me. I got it in like 2 weeks. Couldn't have been easier.
See, this is what we want to do. It's all free. We want people to see that the help exists to be able to get your taxes done, and the money exists to be able to put back into the economy. Thank you. All right, next thing on the list is an increase in the child care tax credit, $1,000 now for families making more than $3,000 a year. That's a pretty broad swath of people who are eligible for the per child tax credit. If you are a senior citizen, or you get disability or on SSI, you are going to get a check in the mail. $250 between May and June of this year, one time, no matter who you are. Roger? You're hoping, man. You're on SSI?
I am on SSI.
All right, so look for the check.
Yes.
I'll be back to you, though. $250. Senior citizens and people who are on disability. That is stimulative for our economy. Now, if you know young people who want to buy a house, of course, we want to start turning over some of these homes that have been on the market forever, right? So $8,000 first-time homeowner tax credit, $8,000. Now, you know, that's a whole down payment, right? In the days when they used to ask for 10%. Hopefully they get back to those days, because we want to make sure that people can afford the home that they get into, right? But $8,000 is a good chunk of that. So tell people, if they want to buy a house, you've never had a better time to buy a house than right at this moment. Never. So I would encourage people, if they can afford it, to do that. For those who are unemployed, there's several benefits from the act for those who are on unemployment right now. One is the amount of money that they get per week went up by $25 per week, $100 a month. The second is they extended the amount of time that somebody could be on unemployment in recognition of this very difficult recession that we're in. And so now, the amount of time that you can be on unemployment is up to 79 weeks. Now think about that. Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? I mean, it's a year and a half. You could be on unemployment. And what can you do in that year and a half? You can find a job, yes. But you can go to school. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. Go to school. And if, you know, that's what it's there for, to help people retool themselves in this tough economy. So you're here at the community college, and they have some terrific programs for those who have been displaced by the economy to allow themselves to retool, pull themselves up, and I'll talk about that in 1 second. So unemployment, increased in the amount of time, increased in the per week amount. We also saw an increase, especially for those who've been in a really tough situation, in food assistance. So come here, food assistance examples. Oh, you're on food assistance too. Come here, hon. We'll have you all stand together, except for you, Roger. You stay. All right. So here, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to name, rank, serial number. Now I want you to give me your name and how much you get per month, and maybe just a little bit about what your circumstances are, how many kids you have, and how you ended up landing needing food assistance. We don't call it food stamps anymore. It's food assistance. People get what is known as a bridge card, so you can go in like a credit card into the store. But the purpose is to be able to bridge people during a tough time, recognizing that in a recession, people need some help to be able to make it through to the other side. So go ahead.
Evelyn Miller, I got 3 children, and if I didn't have food assistance, I wouldn't make it.
How much do you get per month?
About better than 400 a month.
400 a month, and not much else, right?
Not much else at all.
Okay, great. And you are?
Gloria Dunbar, and I have 2, a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old. I was getting $34 a month. Now I'm getting $104.
And tell us, you had a little personal.
My daughter went in to have a minor sinus surgery and had a stroke on the operating table.
Right. So she's using food assistance to help bridge that time because she had to leave her job to help her daughter, who obviously you can understand why you'd want a mother to be home with her daughter, and it allows her to be able to bridge that. The reason why they're up here, and Roger here too. Roger, we call him a 5-fer or whatever it is. He gets a few bit of help because in recognition of, you know, somebody who's got a disability, somebody who is challenged in terms of their personal circumstances. You need to be able to make sure we have compassion and allow people to survive. And you get food assistance too.
I get $52, which is doubled from what I got last year. But I also get the Now Food program, which is food that is designed for diabetic people. It is specifically designed for me. And so that takes away a little bit of my food stamps, but it's quality assistance, bridge card. It takes a little bit away from that, but it gives me a better quality food for a diabetic. And then I go to the food bank through Marcia, at Access Food Banks, you know, through our church, and Brookside Christian Reformed Church is one of those Access Food churches, and once a month they have a food truck come in, so I go through that. So it's actually 3 times I'm allowed to have help with food.
So, I mean, this is who we are, right? Frankly, it's whose we are, as we say often in the religious community. We're here to help one another during really, really tough times. There was an increase in food assistance in this Recovery Act to be able to allow people to bridge, recognizing it's not a permanent solution for most people, but it is there to make sure that you are able to make it through, especially given your circumstances. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks. All right, for those of you who have kids going to college, oh yeah, look at them all. Oh yeah, 3, so it's a 3-fer for you. Look at this. You are able to deduct up to $2,500 of college expenses, which is great. I say the same thing, hallelujah. But secondly, for those who are eligible to go to college and eligible for Pell Grants, which are for for lower income kids, the Pell Grant got increased to $5,300 a year. Now, where's the president of the community college? Is the president here? The tuition at community colleges across Michigan, about $3,000 to $4,000 a year, somewhere in that range. $5,300, full tuition plus books, right? Take away all excuses. We want these young people to be able to go to college. Now, $5,300 won't get you your full tuition at U of M, but when you combine that with other need-based scholarships, plus the Michigan Promise Scholarship, which is $4,000, now you're talking some real money. We, as parents, as leaders, have got to get these kids to realize they cannot stop at high school anymore. This is not just for them, but for the state. They have a duty to go beyond high school because we've got to diversify this economy and send this message. And for the parents who didn't go to college because it wasn't necessary, we can tell these kids that what was good enough for us is not going to be good enough for them in a global economy. And if they've got any questions about it, just tell them to look at what's happening to the economy in Michigan. We right now are in the bottom third of states with respect to the number of adults in our population that have gone to college. And it's because people had the benefit of being able to go from high school to factory. And as we've seen, those jobs are rapidly declining. So these kids have got to get it that going beyond high school, graduating from high school for one thing, but going beyond high school is critical to their success, and it certainly is helpful to Michigan's economy. And we're going to do everything we can to take away the excuses of unaffordability to be able to get them there. Now, for the adults, a lot of adults have had the rug pulled out from under them and never had a chance to go to college. Maybe it wasn't necessary for them either. But now we want to give them the chance of the dignity of a second career. No Worker Left Behind is the state's program. It is driven by the business sector. What it basically says is, state will, if you're unemployed or underemployed, the state will pay for your tuition if you agree. This is the catch. You have to agree to be trained in an area of need where the business community has said, we're going to have jobs. We don't want to train you for stuff where you don't end up finding a job. We want to train you for emerging sectors. So, for example, huge need in healthcare. We'll train people for that. We'll pay for 2 years of tuition, $5,000 per year, up to $10,000. The Recovery Act will do this for us. All you have to do, tell people, show up at the Michigan Works Agency. Stand up. Have you guys seen an increase at the Michigan Works Agency? For
recovery money, where do people go? They go to our Michigan Work Service Centers, and we're going to help people with these recovery monies by coming up with some needs-based payments, some transportation assistance. We want them to go to school to retool.
Right. But you have to agree, again, to be trained in, I always say, you know, you can't go into a Michigan Works agency and say, I want to get a degree in, well, I'll just say, I'll use mine, in political science or French. We're not going to pay for that. We will pay for a degree in an area where we know it's going to lead to a job, right? So we got a couple of examples. No Worker Left Behind example. Now, Roger, did you do No Worker Left Behind too? And is she going to No Worker Left Behind? And she getting trained? See? You got 6 benefits, man. I'm all about it. That is excellent. See? And there's benefits that abound. We really want to make sure, though, that the benefits are really targeted toward helping individuals, obviously, and helping the state as well. Dwayne.
Yes.
Dwayne.
I'm Dwayne Ramick, and a couple years ago I lost my job in warehouse management, and for about 8 to 10 months I looked real hard and couldn't find anything, so I discovered this place. And through the assistance, with a little bit of Pell Grant assistance, I took the class in
And No Worker Left Behind.
and No Worker Left Behind. Took the class in residential remodeling. I've completed that, and then I discovered a program called the Workforce Reinvestment Act, which assisted me in providing tuition towards the training for my residential builder's license. The Michigan Works, yes, exactly. It's all part of it. They paid for the application fee, the testing fee, and also some startup capital for equipment.
And when did you take your test?
took my test last Friday, and I passed it, and now I'm a licensed builder.
Thank you, Dwayne. And the great thing is, we hope that he's going to be able to benefit from the remodeling efforts that the Recovery Act will provide, and I'll get to that in 1 second. We actually have a whole crew of folks here who are moving toward the No Worker Left Behind program, right? You guys up there doing our Jet Plus and to get retraining, so we're excited about where your futures are as well. Okay, so no worker left behind important. Schools, you know, here's what I'm doing in this PowerPoint is I'm going through these categories of funding that you'll see. Schools are going to get $2.2 billion in Michigan, largely moving towards schools that get Title I funds, free and reduced lunch, so kids in higher degree of poverty, and school districts that have students who receive special education services. So a lot of the schools are going to see that, universities as well. The reason why there's not a bigger breakdown on that category is because the feds haven't exactly given us the guidance yet. It's all, you know, all these guidelines are rolling out day by day. So we have a recovery website. It's called michigan.gov/recovery for those of you who are interested. And in fact, for those of you who want updates, we are all about technology. So if you want to get a Twitter update or a Facebook update, you can sign up on our website and we can update you. As soon as we get information from the feds, we'll let you know so that you can take advantage of it if it's appropriate for your organization. Michigan got $20 million for Head Start, recognition that early childhood is critical, of course, to the success of children later in life. Weatherization is another really big aspect of this act. In fact, in Grand Rapids, you guys are going to see $7.1 million additionally for weatherization. That's a lot of money. That means that over 1,000 homes are going to be weatherized. And I've got, let's see, is it Lori, Bethany? Come here, you guys. So nice to have you here. All right, so average citizens got their homes weatherized, right? All right, so tell us what they did to your home and the benefit that you saw from it.
Yeah, I received.
And where you went to get it done.
Oh, I went to DHS and I applied and received benefit for the weatherization program. I received insulation in all 4 of my walls in my house and my ceiling. I had no insulation before, so it was a vast improvement. I also received an Energy Star furnace, fire alarms or fire detectors in all of my floors, and energy efficient light bulbs. My heating bill looks like it's being reduced as much as 40%, and I have already seen a 15% reduction in my electric bill costs.
Which is great.
It's huge.
And I had mine done about 4 years ago, and they did the same thing, the insulation in the walls, and I went from a gravity furnace to a actual forced air furnace, so that's a big difference too for us at our home too.
And so you've seen benefit in terms of your heating bill as well. So instead of heating the outside, they're heating the inside of their homes, which is a great thing. And now, not everybody qualifies. This is really for low and moderate income folks. You guys can sit. But so this is an example. And who's here from the Community Action Agency? Look, you're doing it all. I'm going to scooch back to you. You're the weatherization person, right? Yeah. Tell us your name.
My name is Karen Tolan, and I'm with the Asset Community Action Agency program. We provide weatherization services for Kent County, Grand Rapids, and we've been doing it for about 40 years, 30 years, probably at least.
And so this is just an example, Karen, right?
Right.
If you're a family of 4 making less than $44,000, you can receive up to $6,500 of upgrades that save money on energy, but it's on a sliding scale, right?
It is on a sliding scale, and the goal is to reduce energy usage and to reduce the need for people to access emergency utility services as well.
Okay, so this is a home run, you guys. Check it out. Obviously, it helps the person, right, who owns the home, so you see a reduction in your energy bill. Secondly, the community action agencies across the state are trying to get all of the products that are being installed made in Michigan. So it helps our Michigan, right, Michigan businesses. Michigan first, that's what I'm talking about. Third is they are hiring people to be able to do the installation, right, Karen?
Right. We anticipate an additional at least 5 or 6 contracting crews, which will provide about 50 more jobs, and then we're increasing staff by about 9.
So So, and you're taking, I know you're waiting for some final
We
determinations.
are waiting for some final
But you're going to get
instruction.
this money, and you're putting people on waiting lists right now, right?
Yes, we are.
All right, so another 1,000 homes, so benefits those who are getting a job installing, those who are making those products, the person who has the home. It also benefits the planet. And that really is part of the goal, is to help reduce our energy use overall, particularly our reliance on fossil fuels. Very exciting, and it's a big, very, very consistent with the Obama administration's efforts. Yes?
This weatherization is also available for people that rent their homes, not just people that own.
Right, right. That's a good point. It is available to renters as well. So it's across the board. And if you're not eligible because of your income level, then you can still get a tax credit. If you install energy efficiency materials in your home, you can still get, and in fact, they tripled the tax credit up to $1,500 for those who do their own installation. So weatherization is one. Healthcare is another category of funding that Michigan is benefiting from enormously. A lot of money sent to Michigan because of Medicaid. In fact, there's a significant funding boost so that we don't cut people off of healthcare during this tough time and allow us to enroll those who are eligible. There's now 102,000 people in Kent County that receive Medicaid, that are eligible for Medicaid. Medicaid serves children, people with disabilities, senior citizens, pregnant women. If you lost your job, however, and you liked your previous benefit package and you want to take it with you, there's something called COBRA, right, that you could buy. Have you ever tried to do it? It's ridiculous. It's so expensive. It really is. So in recognition of that, the federal government has offered to subsidize 65% of that. So that's another benefit if you liked your old benefit package and can afford at least that 35% payment. You can do that as well. And then in recognition of the need for primary care, that it's much better for people to get care on the front side rather than going to emergency rooms, right, where it's much more expensive. Clinics, federally qualified health centers got money all across the state. In this area, $604,000 for Cherry Street Services, $194,000 for St. Mary's Health Care. Again, recognizing that people right now, especially if they've lost their insurance and lost their job, they need access to care. Now, this is a slide about foreclosure. Even though the foreclosure help was not technically in the Recovery Act, it passed around the same time. And there's a lot of people, everyday citizens, who are facing this. It is a way to be helped. If you know folks whose mortgages are Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac held, there is a program to be able to refinance, get a fixed rate at a low interest cost, and the feds will help you get there. The kicker on that is you have to be current on your mortgage payment. If you're not Fannie or Freddie and that doesn't apply to you, there's a second product. It's called the Home Affordable Modification Program. That is an incentive for banks and individuals to refinance, especially if they've got some of these adjustable rate mortgages where the adjustment is about to shoot through the roof and they may lose their home as a result of that. You are maybe eligible for this Home Affordable Modification Program. It can reduce mortgage payments to make them affordable. But check this out. For mortgages up to $729,000, you could tell it was written by Californians, right? This act. But it just shows you how broad it is supposed to reach. Now, for those who know folks who may need this, or if you need it, you can go to our website, michigan.gov/MSHDA, M-S-H-D-A. That stands for Michigan State Housing Development Authority. It's the worst acronym known to mankind. But they have counselors who are not affiliated with any of these mortgage companies, who are working for you, who want to be able to help folks make good decisions about how to get their home, how to stay in their home, how to refinance their home, how to prevent themselves from going into foreclosure. And if you have a pen, I'll give you a number. It's 866, this is a toll-free number to MSHDA, to the counselors, 866-946-7432. 866-946-7432. Housing got a lot of money, though. in the Recovery Act, particularly housing commissions, which are largely responsible for low-income housing across the state. The dollars that come into these housing commissions are going to be used in many ways for rehabbing homes, et cetera, for renovation. $854,000 to the Grand Rapids Housing Commission, $336 for Wyoming. You can read all of the amounts of the local housing commissions that are getting dollars through the Recovery Act. Again, that puts people to work like Dwayne, and it also makes sure that people have good places to live in. Public safety is another category of money that got funding through the Recovery Act. And so there's two sort of sets of funds that got money. We got $67 million as a state, so Grand Rapids, Wyoming, Kentwood, Kent County, and Ottawa County all got a chunk of that. But there's also an opportunity for Michigan law enforcement agencies to compete for grant money, and that grant money they've already competed for. In Grand Rapids, I know they have. That allows them to hire more law enforcement officers on the street. Very important during this tough time. And then we also got, as a state, $4.4 million more for child support enforcement, another category of funding coming to us that protects our kids. Roads and bridges is probably the area that got the most attention when people think of the Recovery Act, right? You think, oh, it must mean that we're going to get all of our roads done. In fact, when the act was signed, it's a little bit disappointing because we thought we were going to actually get a significant amount of more money for investment in roads and bridges. It turned out to be a little bit less than what we thought. Nonetheless, it allows us to do some significant work in the Grand region. Is anybody here from MDOT? Anybody? Are you authorized to speak? Here, I dub you. I authorize you. No, MDOT. I know people.
What would you like me to say?
I mean, just describing, the Grand region consists of...
Well, the Grand region is...
tell us your name.
Dennis Kent. I'm the region planner from the local office. We cover 8 counties in the Grand Rapids area, kind of from Grand Rapids North, and there's a number of projects, many of them right here in the Grand Rapids area. 196 listed up there is between Fuller and 131. We're going to do some improvements we were not able to do without the recovery money. We're also doing some resurfacing of I-96. We're replacing the 44th Street interchange over 131. That's actually not a recovery project, but that's one we were doing with some
regular dollars.
Regular dollars. And we're doing that with the city of Wyoming. And we're also replacing a couple of bridges in Ada and Lowell also in
And there's a whole bunch more. In fact, those are just some examples of the work that's being done here. The great thing about the Recovery Act is it allows us to accelerate what was the plan already. So it pulls forward a bunch of projects. We've got about, a 40% unemployment rate among our trades and construction workers and road building, the road building community. This really allows us to put people back to work. Very important. If you combine the amount of money that we're getting through the Recovery Act with the amount of money that MDOT and our local partners were going to spend on local roads, it's about 6,000 jobs in the area, which will be created over the next 2 construction seasons. Very good, very important. We're also taking advantage of making sure that local businesses get work. And so there's been a lot of questions about, if I am a disadvantaged business, a woman-owned business, a minority-owned business, how do I get in the game? And so we've got a program to make sure that happens. And in fact, the Michigan Department of Transportation, because of the federal rules, are required to hire 10%, have a 10% requirement of minority and women-owned business DBE participation. We also have a program called the Road Construction Apprenticeship Readiness Program to train young people in the community to be able to learn how to do this kind of work, so that it's a pipeline of talent that we are able to create. And Grand Rapids has got one of those apprenticeship programs as well. Okay, if you're a business owner in Michigan, remember I said we're going to get about $11 billion in tax cuts? $1.4 billion is tax cuts relative to the business community. So if you're not a business owner, this slide will make your eyes glaze over. But if you are a business owner, you'll understand how important this is. The first bullet, bonus depreciation, is extended. It's a $1.1 billion tax savings in the first year. There's a 5-year carryback of net operating losses targeted at small businesses. There's a couple categories there for small businesses. In Michigan, it's a $165 million tax cut for small businesses, $120 million tax cut for the deferral of certain income, and expanding of small business expensing gets another $36 million. All of that is just to say that there's a recognition that those who are hiring, or those who could be hiring, are experiencing a difficult time too. And the Recovery Act provides relief for businesses in Michigan and across the country as well. I have this website here because I want people to know how to get the information about the not just the website, but the Recovery Act. It's got the White House, it's got the state's Recovery Act site, but I also put up as well the Community Service Commission and the Heart of West Michigan United Way. And this is why. During this recession, especially in Michigan, I can tell you, and I bet this has been your experience as well, people have said, what can I do to help? How can I be part of the solution? What can I do to help folks who are challenged? I encourage people to volunteer in some way, whether it's mentoring a child or writing a check to the United Way. The bottom line is there has been a 30% increase during this recession, 30% increase in volunteerism. Because I think people recognize that during this tough time, that it is a time to step forward. It makes me really proud that our citizens feel like we're all in this together. And, you know, if there but for the grace of God go I, right? If somebody has lost their job, I might be next. So I have a role to play here, and it's a recognition of that. So I'll dub you here to be part of the solution, which I know many of you already are. And the last thing I want to say before I want to open up for questions is this. People ask me all the time, you know, when are we going to get out of this in Michigan? What's the path to having us emerge? And I can tell you that despite the challenges to our auto industry, you know, you in West Michigan, in the Grand Rapids area, you can see a path, right? I mean, you can see it all around you. You can see it in the investments that are being made in healthcare. You can see it with the great number of graduates that are being churned out, both at the community college as well as at Grand Valley. You can see it in the linkage between what's happening in the colleges and training people for the jobs that are being created here. There is a path out of this. It's all related to diversifying this economy of ours, of adding new sectors, and of increasing the graduates in our state. But 2 years ago, I invited the governors of all of the states to come to Michigan. We have a summer meeting. It's called the National Governors Association, and every governor gets to host it, or not everybody who puts in gets to host it during a summer if they want to. And I put in, because I wanted to show us off. And we went up to Traverse City. And have you guys been up to Traverse City? You've been up on the old Mission Peninsula. We went up to something called Chateau Chantal, which is where you do some wine tasting and you're on a hill and you overlook the bay. And these governors, who had never been to Michigan before, and especially the ones from the Southwest, where it's dry, they were, I would say blown away, but I've decided not to use that word anymore. They were floored by what they saw. So much blue, so much green. I had no idea Michigan had all of these assets. When I look at what Michigan has compared to what other states have, I mean, we are incredibly blessed. We've got resources that other states could only pine for. And those resources can be the fuel for energy independence. The water means that we get a lot of wind. And the wind energy, and who can manufacture those turbines better than we can? Those turbine manufacturers are looking for places where they've got empty factories and workers who know how to do machining. Well, hello, right? And a place where you can transport those turbines using the large infrastructure that you need. They also are looking for places where you can transport big turbines on water because it's easiest to do that. We are the place where that can happen. Despite the fact that Michigan is not necessarily a sunny state, We know how to do clean manufacturing. And so what you see in Greenville, for example, with United Solar Ovonics, we've got the workforce that has the capacity to build solar panels. We also have in Saginaw the largest producer in the world, of the stuff that goes into most solar panels, which is called polycrystalline silicon. But no other state has that. The reason why I raise that is because as you look to compare us to other states, which are our competitors, or other countries, what is it that we have that's different? And why are we going to be okay? It's our geography and our history with manufacturing in the automotive industry. The car, my friends, is not going away. The car is only going to be more in demand as the rest of the world gains a middle class. The question is, what is that car going to be? It's going to be an electric vehicle in one way or another. And what's the guts of that electric vehicle? But the battery. In this country right now, there are no mass producers of the batteries that go into electric cars. They're different than the batteries that are in your car right now. It's a different kind of battery. It's called a lithium-ion battery. But they're all made in Asia. Well, the Obama administration, in the Recovery Act, put $9 billion into the act for battery technology. And you better believe we're going after it full force, because the state that has the battery is the state that's going to produce that electric car. So 2 weeks ago, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, and Dow Chemical teamed up with 4 battery companies to bring those jobs here, thousands of jobs. If they get that recovery dollars, we are going to be the state that makes us free of foreign oil. We are going to be the state that leads to energy independence. So there is a path. We are going to be okay. But we have got to make sure that we use this money wisely, that we diversify this economy, and we protect people in the meantime. So with that, I've got 10 minutes. You give me the hook when I'm done, right? 10 minutes. Questions? Questions that you guys might have? Yes, sir.
Start up like on the batteries.
The question is, will grants be available for entrepreneurs? There is money through the Small Business Association. The grant dollars for the batteries specifically are going to projects that team up a car company with a battery company that can do mass production. But of course, once the battery companies get here, they need to have suppliers for the parts of the battery. They have an anode and a cathode and the cells of the batteries. I don't know any of the science. I just know those words. But I know that there is a whole supply chain that is necessary for that. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation has a strategy to be able to help fund that supply chain. So I would encourage you to go to the MEDC website, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC.org, and they can guide you, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering where I could find out more about the road construction apprenticeship program.
Dennis, you there? Can you help her? She wants to know, can you direct her to the person who is helping out on the road construction apprenticeship program?
Sure, you can stop and see me
On the way out.
On the way out.
Great, okay, you bet.
I have a question about the school grants. My kids are in the Wyoming district, and they have a thing that's called pay to play. Will that be able to be enforced in that, where if they want to play a sport, it's a certain amount, and for parents like myself, we can't afford to pay the play, so our kids don't get to play.
Superintendent from Wyoming, you still here? Where is he? I don't know if he may have had to go. Either that or he's ducking. It's going to be all up for the schools to decide how they use the dollars that they will be getting. They are going through tough times too because of the baby boom and the declining enrollment in school districts all across the state. So because school funding is attached to every child, the less children you have because of less kids in the system, their money goes down, yet they still have the fixed costs of operating a building, et cetera. But every school district has to make the decisions about how they are going to be spending their money on that. Yeah, oh, there you.
Most districts have a heart, and I'm sure Wyoming does as well. And if they have a sports boosters club, they are handling that problem. So if you're just not aware of that as a parent, contact your sports boosters. They will help you with that.
I would say all school districts have a heart. They all really want to make sure. I mean, nobody wants to be doing that pay-to-play stuff, but they don't have any money, either, and that's the challenge. Yeah.
With the 6 of us sitting here, we're in the Jet Plus class.
Tell them what Jet Plus is so that you can stand up.
Jet Plus is we're
Jobs,
like
education, and training.
Yep, we're non-traditional students, kind of older adults going back to school. And wondering, would we be eligible for No Worker Left Behind after we're done?
Yeah, if you agree to be trained in an area of need. So Jet Plus gets the adults who you probably didn't get a chance to go to college, right? And so they're having to bone up on algebra and stuff like that, which is very scary to be able to go back to school, but they've got to get basic skills to be able to get them to the point where they can be entered into a community college and go through a program. So the answer is yes, absolutely, you would be eligible for No Worker Left Behind. There's going to be a cutoff for No Worker Left Behind too, just to be clear about that, because the money's only coming through this recovery program, so it's going to end in 2 years, and so we want to make sure that you're able to get through this and get through the training. Do you want to add anything to that, Michigan? Right. Right. It's all part of a seamless web. All right. Last question. Make it a good one.
I'm going to try. It's a business question.
All right. Well, I may not be able to answer it then.
What does the recovery plan mean for our local lending institutions and their ability to lend money and extend line of credits to existing businesses in Michigan so that we're better able to diversify and be better prepared to negotiate our way through the recession and not have to lay off any of our employees?
Yeah, the Recovery Act doesn't deal with that. It's really the TARP money, as you know, right? The local banks, and I'm not, depending on what your bank is, some banks accessed it, some didn't. But you're right, banks have clamped down. It's part of it's a major contributing factor to what's happening and why nobody's hiring and why businesses aren't expanding. It's part of the reason why we have asked, the Treasury Department to provide an incentive to get these banks to take that money and get it out into the stream, right? It would help a lot. I mean, banks are notoriously cautious, and in a recession, they're really cautious, and so they're not opening it up. But the purpose of the TARP money was to stimulate the economy, and if the banks are holding on to it, then there's a bottleneck. So the Obama administration, I know, is very well aware of that, but it hasn't trickled down to the effect and every state is asking for the same thing. Businesses across the country are asking for the same thing. And that is going to have to be the last question, because I want to be respectful of all of your time. We said we'd be done by 11. I'm so grateful to you for coming and for caring enough about Michigan and for caring enough about your neighbors to be able to sit on a great day in Michigan in a beautiful spot, but to sit here and learn is a lot. If you lead an organization and you want to take this PowerPoint, you can. It's on the website. You can download it so you can share it with folks that you may work with or play with, but you are welcome to it. We want to be as transparent as possible. And just know, Michigan and Grand Rapids, that with your help and your participation, because you are all owners of this state as well and leaders in this state, that together we are going to build the next Michigan, and we're going to be all right. God bless you all. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Remember me?
Well.